September 3rd. Activity myself and John. We're going to call this meeting to order. Item number 2 is comments, suggestions, petitions that are regarding items not on. Seeing none, we can move on to item 3A, which is our borough.
Also, in regard to prepare a report for committee this month, hopefully we'll cover our budget. I want to say one thing that we did. They'll make motion. Our manager, our daily. We're really proud.
Yes, any comments, questions? Item 3B is to consider creating a committee / subcommittee to assist and support residents and businesses in performing historical research. So this was just in some of my priorities for the end of my term. We're in the middle of like doing the historic inventory. Sure that what needs to be in that inventory gets in that inventory. Mainly I worry about my work specifically in STEM. Since I just actually. But in those 10 years, the STEM has changed. There's a lot of history over there that I'm still looking for. So I was hoping the Historic Commission could get involved in some of that work just to make sure that those items are. And this is on.
Other questions, people that are asking.
So we have, I'd say like basically to the end of like the physical inventory of the historic, something I know there have been like walk-on tours and she would give walk-on tours, and that's something that I submitted to the borough with all the questions. So there have been a lot of folks giving that's the kind of thing where like this kind of history and record keeping has been we also have historic commission that is hoping to do like a lot more detailed research. This is something we can just pass along as a discussion item. Pass this along for a session. This is something we steps.
Yeah, maybe discussing in full council if it's. Yes.
3C. That's time of the year. 123 item.
picnic, so it was exciting. I apologize.
You guys are in store for the. The goal of these conversations that are committee meetings tonight and tomorrow night is to talk about details about how the departments what's changing, if anything, about them year over year. What they're up to. Next week in our work session, I'm going to speak about the budget. That's the issue of how it all fits together. These conversations tonight, tomorrow night are really just focused.
Just want to talk a little bit about what IT does in general. So technology is, of course, the foundation of our organization, how we work, how we communicate, and how we evolve over time. Organization services, of course, we rely on networking infrastructure, front-end hardware, connecting devices, software, mobile services, and much more. Of course, the technology standard providing services to all these things 24/7. A very important factor of IT is our cybersecurity redundancy efforts. Now including state-of-the-art solutions, monitoring, investigation, remediation, and organizational live training. 7 or 8 years ago, I probably would have said that. I would say we need good antivirus software. Just want to give you a real quickly a snapshot of 8 years of IT costs. And there's just two things I want to highlight here. In 2017 and 2018, we actually were able to design and build a complete network while we were still in the building and this building was being refurbished. And that has gone a long way to help us control costs because we're sitting on a relatively new infrastructure. And then in 20 and 21, of course, we were impacted by COVID or budget, like all other budgets were reduced during that time frame. But at the same time with that, Borough also moved all Microsoft 365 and all hardware costs into the IT budget. So we're still down at that point, but now we're taking on costs that had been with the individual departments. The cost that's going to the departments now is their software licensing. Five-year capital projection. Smart and planned technology investments are expected to result in reduced technology and data capital costs in 24 and 25. Not servers and hosts and switches and firewalls, thank you so much. So some 2023 operations highlights. Today, budget now stands at 50% operational and 50% cybersecurity redundancy. That's a huge increase over the past 5 or 6 years, but it's quite necessary. This continued smart investment in cybersecurity in collaboration with our active day-to-day management department is a critical element in protecting our organization, current and emerging cyber threats. It's really a non-stop function. Operations pilot for next year is we're going to be adding another solution. It's called a Barracuda Data Inspector. This is a very new service. The service offers enhanced liability protection by flagging sensitive personal identifiable information that can place organization at risk. It's going to flag things that could be sitting in our systems, Microsoft on the server, and let us know that they keep an eye on this. You might need an explanation why it's there. It will flag it, driver's license numbers, credit card numbers, routing numbers. It will flag it on this and let us know that they action. If we need to, from the top needs to be here. In consistent smart planning and investment, the operational budget remains consistent from the previous year as we continue to upgrade and replace hardware and our infrastructure on a planned schedule. See that in the 5-year plan. Some capital highlights for next year. Next year is the last big capital year for the next couple. One of those is the acoustical treatment for the borough council chambers. If you go into room 232, you can see what they have there. With the acoustical treatments on the walls will make the echo effect, get us off of the submarine every month. And of course, scheduled workstations, maybe throughout the organization, they try to schedule. Schedule upgrades, these are virtual servers. Of course, the ongoing upgrades or replacements of other switches. That's about $8,000. Just a real quick note here. In an effort to simplify the budget, there were several line items that have been fired and their assets have been moved to other line items. This is the reason there are artificial large increases in some of the line items. Others have 100% decrease. I just want to note that we were trying to organize. I had 3 line items that all had adult security. So we kind of put them all together as opposed to spreading it out, making the budget a little simpler to read. So this is our 5-year capital projection. See, next year we're doing our versus our virtual server. Ongoing, we buy our switches each year. Upgrades throughout the organization. And of course, the inclusive controls. And then what you hear with the yellow is our 5-year projection for capital in the IT department. And you can see the next 2 years, 24 and 25. Yeah, because we have just replaced our servers and our firewalls. And they're about big expense items. One of my favorite things I did here, this took me about 2 days of hard work, I did a little fun back here. Just thinking about this, the total expected 5-year technology capital investment is only slightly more than we bought our Sweet Shooter for this. And put emphasis on that, I have a little Sweet Shooter provided. So that Sweet Shooter is pretty much close to our 5-year investment. I think we're spending our money wisely. I'm not dissing Sweet Shooter, I like that. And so our operations budget is about $45,000, almost 45.5, more than last year. And that's really because of our continued smart investments. That Barracuda data inspector is going to help us with liability, is one of the upgrades we're doing inside of operations. And a little additional funds for the IT staff, especially with cybersecurity and other programming training we want to do. Although this one technology is less than expected budget impact. The total technology budget, which includes capital operations and salaries each year, continues to be a very small impact in the first 22. This year, these services, which every department relies on, account for less than 2% of the total budget. This is not going to change over the next second. So we're trying to be smart about our spending. At the same time, investing in things like cybersecurity, collaboration.
Just one. The ATP line item is that.
That's the ATP. That's my favorite line item.
Okay.
That's advanced threat protection. So that's everything from virus to filtering to AI solutions for watching emails coming in. And it also is incredibly, it allows us to look at these emails, see if they went anywhere else, remediate them, just pull everything out of the boxes, see if anyone put down a message and forwarded it, allows us to take proactive action. Not only ones that were stopped by their but ones that our employees no solutions more than 90%. That's what human beings come in and help us. That's incredibly important. And my favorite line actually.
Perfect. Sounds good. Questions?
Slide 9, if you go to slide 9, salary increases, how are they determined?
I'm not part of the or the top part is not something that.
So across the board for all non-union employees, we assumed a 3% increase. So across the board for all non-union employees, we assumed a 3% increase in there. And we also reclassed, if you remember last year, we had longevity line items. We reclassed those line items into those. So it's a combination of a 3% increase in longevity for employees that are here over 5 years.
So, departments, you might look at salary increases. single line item. The reason I insisted we do that was that it helps with calculating where you're at during the year. So I need to know by like May, how you're on target for spending this out. You need to be categorized in a way that I can just look at one line item and know where we're at. That's the reason we did the classifications. We see this over all the departments. We are not providing the 10%. Money is just consolidated as a line item.
So I have one question, well, since I'm here. I noticed that for the most part, except for maybe one or two departments, that looked like insurance costs were going down. Is that a surprise?
So we've been working through some of our line items for both the workers' comp and the general insurance, and we are basing our calculations based on what is actually in the workers' comp policy. There are certain different rates that you pay for different classes of employees. So in some departments, you may see a large increase, and in others, you're just seeing a decrease. It's just basically making sure that we're grouping all of that into the correct line items.
So for medical insurance, that's.
Well, for medical insurance, we have been given that we will not have an increase this year. That may, increase a little bit, but as of the information that I received when this budget was put together last week, it's supposed to be a 0% increase.
Great news. Thank you. Bill, thank you. Jane.
You mean the low screen speaker? Hours of that time.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah, thanks again. Considering that project there, that Silver protects us from very. Item. This is a part it's going to sound like we're cheating. 3D, discuss the reapportionment of voting force. So we have options A through C, D, C now. So this is obviously an ongoing discussion. And I guess for the record, about it's around updated census data and trying to bring our worlds into the proper compliance, considering but we should just open up this discussion and talk about different options we have and what our abilities are to pursue each of those options. So for example, it's option A, just so we're all on the same page. A is keep it the same. Is that right?
A moves portion 1 into 7.
Okay.
292.
So A is just the 1/7.
Switch. That's it.
Sorry.
I mean, if you get rid of the voting words, I believe B is the option, in which case that splits the voting awards in, excuse me, that splits the voting award blocks in the South to 3 different precincts in 3, 4, and 5. Option C is essentially Ward 5 with 150 residents, and option D is just the university itself.
Okay, great. That's my situation. I think that makes sense. So I guess what would make sense is if we could try to come up with an action plan for see happen. Maybe, is there, like, do we have a consensus about which plan we prefer for getting the, regulations we're up against here?
So, Sean, this is due by September 30th. These plans, yeah, so
I don't have a due date, but I would like to make a decision. Smart to decide this month.
so, let's say this, we can option B. I mean, that's essentially closest option that we're gonna have as far as rebalancing the board population. However, we're gonna run into that big con, which is the state law forbids splitting of the US Census blocks. But I guess we have to determine what the census blocks are, or how it can be determined to be split. That was, I guess, decided. So they can Supreme Court.
This map has shown your option B in wards 3, 4, and 5. Segments of those voting boards are in this just area on that. Those boundaries do not follow census block boundaries. Legal counsel has reconsidered the position. Follow census block boundary. It's the desire of the committee and the council. This is the voting board geography you want to go with that makes the most sense. It balances population. It does a decent job of distributing the 3,600 or so student residents on campus. That's the decision the council part of this. We can take that to Court of Common Pleas and get the court to agree. This should be our voting board system. Our feedback on voter services at Chester County, they would work with anything they did. We had very little commitment. Voter services is not here. It starts with us. Board boundaries make the most sense, honor the reason for establishment of the board system. And getting the court to approve.
Great. I think, for the sake of like efficiency, not having to come back next month in case this doesn't end up panning out, would it make sense then to try to like specify an order of preference? So we could, over the next month, kind of pursue every avenue available to option, let's say B first. And if that hits all brick walls, we could maybe say we'll try A until that one's brick walls, and we could try C. In that order, that's not order. This is what I mean.
Yeah, the only negative to that is if it's rejected, and then the court draws a line. So, I mean, we can go with B, but after that, A is out of compliance.
Yeah, I just think, I think you're probably right, that if we can't get B, then we'll probably. For Mr. Pharmacy, kind of look at least try A before we make, what is it, is it 5? I get 5. But before we relegate 5, super block.
The only question that I would this map is that the voting precinct in Ward 4 is physically going to be located in Ward 3 for the public works department. So I don't know if there is a way to somehow change that. I don't know, but that would be the only precinct in the ward system that is not in its own ward.
I'm directionally challenged a little bit, but is staying.
Things and those things in
Assessing the solution. Yes.
Just want to point out that 5 has been voting at 3 for years. And 5 would again, if we remain where we're voting now, would be voting in 3. So, I mean, honestly, that polling place is amazing. And if 3 needed a different polling place, it's very large. So just, there are definitely ways to work for the polling place, not necessary.
Yeah, I think my recommendation would be B. I prefer A second. Realizing.
Is there any precedent for a board saying no and gives the amount of sorrow? Is that happen?
It's happening on the legislative issues.
What they do? The C is in compliance, correct?
It's the only one that's in.
So, in my mind, I feel like they would say, no to C, instead of going around. I don't know if that's a point for or two against, or what that is, but I guess as a committee, are comfortable trying this.
B, A, and then C.
Yes.
Why not?
clarify that point about A, column A is actually consistent. But I think what you were meaning to say is option E, which is just the existing where perhaps with that change.
Okay, that's fair, and also slightly. I wasn't thinking it's the same, I think, given the option E though, complicate things a little bit more. I would prefer B, E, A, whatever, B, E, A, C, D.
Agreed. And John, is there something in your conversations with the solicitor about extenuating circumstances being able to make the case for E or A?
Yes. Since A or E follow census block geography, we could argue for. The court ruling from 86, 87, sorry, I don't remember the exact year, stated that, paraphrasing that mathematical certainty is not required for a portion of words. It's 10%. And then I think they use the phrase extenuating circumstance, but some reason, rational reason. Certainly, the problem we faced, and we would have had this for Roman where geography figured out 4 months. We didn't have this. But because we do, it makes it very difficult to balance numbers with. Legal counsel has said that we could make an argument to the court that the 10% did our best, and it's not going to apply words because that's a big problem. But if your B is your number one option, balances population of the
That makes sense.
And then E is just moving 1-7.
Correct. It's under 92.
So can we say the confidence B and C D?
Yes.
Okay. I guess we can. So let's do that. We have B, E, A, and C. Excellent. That'll be fun to do.
And when, do we have a time frame as far as when that is going to be decided?
Council, assuming council approves it on the 21st, we'll start working on it on the 22nd.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? Good, we're going to move on to E, which is to discuss adding a referendum to the voter ballot. And then make the minimal charge to include action that will protect reproduction rights in the Westchester. We don't have that. Are there any questions or concerns? Seem like,
Yeah, I laid out just the process.
Yeah.
This was a paper last year, very helpful memo was drafted. Describes the. Essentially, the council have approved and provided to counties to draft the language that we hear on that 13 Tuesdays prior to the primary. If the primary hasn't been, assuming it's third Tuesday. Have this send this to county by February 7th, therefore we have backwards from there. Backwards from there, you have to have.
we have a little bit of time here, but not a lot. So,
And we would draft that language, or the board would draft?
We draft the ordinance. Or just a county board of elections with draft language.
So does that timeline figure in public hearing?
Yes, it's a normal ordinance that requires 7 prior. January.
I don't know. She's with us.
No.
Okay. So, any questions, comments, concerns?
This is something we talked about next week, but instructions, make a motion next week. Start the solicitor.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan. So we can follow up for you for instructing the solicitor for that ordinance this week. Cool. 4, item A is to approve our August meeting minutes. And then 5A, other business, we have an update on the East Street Open House, which is October 5th at 5:30. Very nice. Great. Any other business? We'll adjourn at 6:05.